Hey everybody, let's see if we're live here. We were having some technical difficulties, and I'm hoping everybody can hear okay. Just let me know if we're live now, and let me know if I sound okay. We were having some technical difficulties. Okay. Woo. So, Chick, I hope I hope your week's going okay. How are you doing?
My week's been going pretty good. I did notice weird shifting and weird things happening. Um, as in this polar vortex that we've been experiencing.
Oh yeah.
Um, that was like a really sudden shift for me. It wasn't happening, and then all of a sudden it was across the whole country, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty wild." There's been a lot of Schumann resonance activity. We've been discussing also an anomaly in the Schumann resonance where there was a black line. I do believe that happened on around January 10th, but it was only I only saw it yesterday, so there was a lot of discussion in our research group about what this black line could be. It could be anything from faulty equipment to, on the other end of it, like reality flatlining for a fraction of time because there was absolutely no data to record. It was just a black line. So we're all going back and forward about what that might be. And then as far as the other news, Ed McMahon and stuff, I don't need to announce that. Maybe you'd like to announce that, but I think that's probably the hugest thing that we have this week. Well, one of the hugest things we have this week, and I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, no, the Ed thing, the Saint Ed, as I call him, and that's more tongue in cheek, everyone. I'm not trying to turn this into a religion, but old Saint Ed, I left the links down below, and what I'm going to do is after the show, I just thought of this. I'm actually going to start downloading this information so we can have it off of line in case they, quote, go missing or whatever, because this stuff is starting to add up. We've got the Ed check, and Johnny Carson's retirement with Letterman. We've got now Ed, which is part of the mainstream narrative that he never handed out checks. He had nothing to do with the checks. It's a misnomer, and that we don't know what we're talking about. But suddenly we have Ed talking about in the rap, if anyone's seen this now infamous rap, that he absolutely handed out checks and he's kind of broken. He wants the checks back, and it's kind of a cute rendition of Ed reliving his glory years as he's driving around, and it really is, with that and everything else that we've accumulated, especially when you concentrate on Ed, I'm convinced now, but also too, I'm also acutely aware of some of the experiments that you and I took part in, either willingly or unwillingly, and whether or not we knew it subconsciously or consciously. We know that when you concentrate on something with the Mandela effect and you actually get in deeper and deeper into the effect, that indeed more and more things will crop up either for or against you. And this happens to be something that seems to be leading us towards a more positive kind of outcome in terms of what we want, in terms of evidence of, with Ed McMahon being sort of the tip of the spear kind of thing, when people are first IMI'd, or if someone's kind of in the middle of the process. If you're already, a sort of advanced level ME, you can kind of ease them into it with these kinds of artifacts. And I think, yeah, this is a bigger, as we get more and more references, because I'm convinced we're going to be able to fill a library with references about Ed McMahon, simply because, and I thought about this idea too, I wanted to float on air with everybody, because I was really moved earlier this week with Dick Diamond's testimony. If you haven't seen that, go check out his channel and check out his testimony. um, if you can get someone on air and put them up on YouTube, if they're willing to do this, and ask them about about the Ed McMahon thing, someone who's 45 and older, and record them. And you don't have to, I don't need the clicks or anything. Let's get this out there on your own channels, even if it's the only video you ever put up, even if it's a handheld, camera or whatever. If you can upload that and take them through that process we've talked about before, of interviewing them about Ed McMahon, and if we can get hundreds of people where these people are all, and make sure they're not in conspiracy culture. These are people like our parents and our grandparents who are absolutely not into this or even understand what's going on. So you absolutely, your subject is absolutely clean, so to speak. They have no idea what's going on. And then afterwards, you can decide whether or not to, disclose to them that their memories are quote unquote incorrect. But I think it would be a compelling argument for people who are skeptics if we can get hundreds of people who don't know one another, who know nothing about the Mandela effect, and all of them give their testimony. And I bet we will actually, even those of us that are deep, deep into it, such as Agent Smith, Chick, and myself, and everyone here, Eileen, all of us, everybody I'm looking out to, Mandy, Mike, Dick, everybody, you know, hey, Michael Muska, you look out, I think we will even be shocked, because if you think about it, we only think about our own small bubbles. At least that's my assumption about everyone is I think about who I can impact. And then, how I try to see through other people's eyes and how I impact them and how they feel. But imagine people you don't know being able to sort of verify what you already know in your own heart, and you don't even know these people. And they do it through their testimony about Ed McMahon, and they don't even know they're doing it. And I don't think that this is something that's dishonest or deceiving as long as you disclose afterwards, obviously get their permission to upload it, but, and then let them know, afterwards, this is the Mandela effect. A lot of people don't remember Ed McMahon and the way that you remember it. Do you mind if I upload this? And if they say yes, do it. And it would be an interesting project. What do you think, Chick?
For sure. There's a lot of people that I'm sure remember Ed McMahon, or if you say Ed McMahon, they have, knowledge of like what we're speaking about. I'm just looking at the Ed McMahon rap, which is the main piece of amazing residue, because it's straight from Ed McMahon's mouth himself that he gave out these big checks and that he wants to, get the checks back. And it's, it's a funny advertisement for freecreditreport.com. And obviously the entire crew have the same memories as us. Ed McMahon has the same memories of us. But this advertisement, this rap that he's doing, it doesn't make any sense here in this place because he never worked for PCH here. And I just think about like how Mandela affected his own personal life is. If somebody actually went up to Ed McMahon and said, look at the history here, you never did all of the things you remember doing. Your entire life is different. Just how strange that would be for the individual himself. And then, of course, for us all watching this, it's just such a solid mountain of evidence, having the presidential papers, having the other pieces of evidence were really good, but this has completely tipped the scale on the other end, where he has those memories, and he's admitting he has those memories. So I'm really wondering if people did do what you were just saying there, got their testimonies, and we were able to almost like put it all together as like, look, here's an enormous amount of testimonies of people who remember Ed McMahon. Here's Ed McMahon himself that remembers doing this PCH thing. It would be very, very difficult for anybody to try and, say that there's nothing going on here.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think this approach of really concentrating on something that's on one thing, on one aspect now, and we were lucky that we stumbled into this particular ME because it's incredibly powerful. And you've got this generation that is almost untouched by, the conspiracy world. Because I would probably say people 45 and under have at least bumped into this kind of conspiracy world simply because of the internet. But the people that are 45 and over, that's a different demographic altogether. So your chances of like what you're talking about, like Ed himself, he may be completely and absolutely unaware, maybe not now, but I'm sure up until recently, he may be absolutely unaware that this is even a thing and that he's part of this whole thing. And you're right. I would love that would be, that's where Eagles dare. I don't even dare to dream that big. If we could get him somehow, like Sinbad, do the Sinbad thing where, Sinbad, like Michael's talking about, does not recognize what we're talking about. But with Ed, who's already come out and said that, it would be interesting if his reaction were to be, I don't know what you're talking about. I did work for Publishers Clearinghouse. You know, for his own health, I hope. I don't know if I want him to say that because I'm afraid that they would try to take things from him for him not remembering correctly or thinking that he's not of right mind because of his age. But I mean, gee whiz, that would be amazing.
True. I mean, we'd all back him up, but yes, of course, if somebody's older, the people who are unaffected and have no idea what we're talking about, they're just going to say, "Oh, you're old, you don't know." And even if we're like, we have 100,000 testimonies that say he's not crazy, we all remember this, except for you, Orion. People have no idea what we're talking about, and for some reason, we're all meshed into the same scene here together, and it's a very strange situation. But it is kind of beyond what I thought we would get. I mean, we had been talking for a while about, I wonder if we could track down someone that got the big checks and that maybe someone could provide a big check that said Ed McMahon or something. And then out of the blue, here's this rap where we don't even, well, it would still be nice to have, but we have such a good new piece of evidence that it kind of overshadows all the other pieces. And I'm just, I don't know. I don't know where you go from here, apart from, if Ed McMahon kind of himself maybe made a video or something. I'm not sure he's going to do that because I'm not sure he's aware of this entire situation, like you were saying there. But Sinbad sure is aware. And I know that some of our Twitter crew are actually, I think, yeah, Agent Smith got reposted by Sinbad because he gets angry every time people talk about the movie that he didn't do. And there were so many people that reacted to the retweet of Agent Smith that then Sinbad was like, well, maybe I should make this movie. And everyone was like, yes, please do it. The advertising is already done. Like, people already think this is a thing. If you do make this movie, people will actually go and see it to see if you got it right.
Yeah, yeah, and that's funny that, you would make this would be the first or that I know of a first movie that would be a sequel to a movie that allegedly never existed, but it's not really a sequel, it's actually a remake of a movie that never existed. I mean, it sounds like I don't know, it sounds like really awesome science fiction that, we're blurring that line again between, how I talk about, you pull down from the muse, you pull down from science fiction like Parsons did the rocket ship, you imagine it and you pull it down and there it is, boom, and someone brought up something to me also, changing gears a little bit. And I really want to say this to everyone, and maybe it would better help everyone sort of understand where I'm coming from when I make references to certain things. Um, yeah, is Ed McMahon dead now? I thought he was alive. That
Yeah,
would be,
he was
yeah.
alive very recently. I just commented there in the comment box, and everyone is saying that here on this, whatever timeline this is, he's been dead since like 2009.
What? No, Ed McMahon, I think is still alive. He's just incredibly old. Hold on, let me check real quick. Hold on a minute. Hold on. I'm Googling Ed McMahon, American announcer. They don't died 2009.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
He can't keep up with this.
we are not gonna get that interview. That will not happen, at least in this timeline. Okay. Okay, so you're with me, chick. You don't remember him dying, right?
No, we checked on this recently.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
was
Well, I
alive and
remember
well, whatever the last timeline was. Sorry.
well, you figure that video was from 10 years ago. It must have been right before he passed away then. Had to have been. Huh.
What the heck
Interesting.
is going on here?
That's weird. Well, at least you and I, because oftentimes I think we're from different timelines. You and I don't agree on past things, but we just agree on ME in general. But this is weird. You and I agreeing on, you know, I mean, I don't know. That's very strange. Very strange, huh?
What's
But
even stranger is that just because he's dead now doesn't mean he will be in the future, as we've
that
seen from this effect.
that's exactly what Eileen was just saying just now. That guys, give it a week, and we might get that interview yet. Who knows?
We're
But
dead serious too.
I just wanted to make a point, and maybe this may help people out. or at least maybe it will help people out with some of the references I make. The way that I approach a lot of things is I'm not really concerned with author intent, and I'm not very concerned with, and maybe a lot of people approach things this way. And this might be something that's a bit of academic literary criticism, but oftentimes I like to play a game where I'm not concerned with author intent, nor am I concerned with author biography, as long as the information presented to me is truthful, and the information presented to me can help me think in a new and dynamic way in order to understand my world better. I had made a reference to William Burroughs in my community tab, which you guys, I'm starting to use that almost every day now. So if you guys want to check out the community tab, sometimes go for it. And I'm dumping stuff there almost every day because I can't do a video every day. But someone said William Burroughs was a CIA shill. And, I responded, so what? I don't care if he's CIA shill. It doesn't matter what the intentions of that person was, especially if they're gone. If you can benefit from that person and what they've put forth, then you will. The personal lives of a lot of people that ended up making society better is littered. Almost every single person that has pushed forth society in some way, Western or otherwise, in society, human society in general, in their personal lives or whatever their dealings were, their politics were probably distasteful to say it at a G level. And to really say what kind of human beings they were is not the kind of vibe that I put out on this kind of show. So I don't care if someone was a CIA shill or whatever it is they were trying to do at the time, which for Burroughs it would have been that beatnik era up until about the 80s or so. A bit before my time in terms of, I mean, I was around in the 80s, but I mean, like really like now where I'm able to, I'm able to make an impact on the world. But yeah, that doesn't discount from that author. I mean, you'd have to throw out almost everyone. I mean, especially with some people, with the way in which they like this, the way in which the Sistine Chapels were painted and who the painter was. Leonardo da Vinci and how he lived his life. I mean, I can just go over and over again the personal lives or the personal politics of many, many, many people who you've probably benefited from. And so I just want you guys to know, when I make things like that and I talk about maybe a Parsons or something else, if you don't agree with the way in which, Parsons was a Thelemite, and you might call him a devil worshiper or whatever it was. It doesn't matter. The point that I'm trying to make is that he was able to pull down and change your life by creating a rocket that can deliver a payload that can detonate a nuclear weapon and take out half the East Coast. And with about 4 or 5 thermonuclear weapons can take out the lower 48. So whether or not you like the person, if you can remove the emotions about that person, you can then start to appreciate what they've done. And by appreciate, I don't mean you have to like. It's sort of like whenever those journalists they put up in their Twitter, a retweet doesn't mean an endorsement. That's me retweeting someone, and it doesn't necessarily mean an endorsement. Now, personally, I enjoyed William Burroughs' stuff, and I didn't find out about his CIA stuff until about 5 or 6 years ago. So I was a true follower of the literary works of that writer. But now it's like, so what? One, he's dead, but two, the way, like when he talks about the symbols and paying attention to memetics and the way in which he used, sort of propaganda and how to use propaganda and to spot propaganda was incredibly important for me personally in understanding the way in which the viral memes work. So I hope, does that make sense to you the way that I explained it, Chick?
Like I hear what you're saying. People think that everything is an endorsement. If you mention anybody, that therefore you must be,
Well said.
completely endorsing them.
Well said, and that's what it is. If I talk about what someone has done something, that's not necessarily always an endorsement. And that's a well said thing, because I think people conflate a lot of things, because I think a lot of people, they're going so fast, with their thinking, and this world is so fast. I think conflation is the rule of the day. and that if something passes your lips, it must be an endorsement. And that's, if I endorse something, I will say I endorse something. Otherwise, you don't know whether or not. And it doesn't really matter. If I pass the information on to you and you find value in that information, it doesn't matter whether or not you and I endorse the personal behavior or the political leanings of that particular person. You know, it's a matter of, I personally, in my humble opinion, for me, it would be a matter of intellectual maturity to be able to say that, because there are tons of people that I will say begrudgingly are incredibly talented that I don't like. And I will say they are talented, but that's not me personally endorsing them as people. But I can objectively say I know this person's talented, but I don't like them.
Yeah, I think that you can benefit from things that, even from people that you don't like, if they do something that's exemplary, or, something that's very much powered by an uncommon talent. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of very cranky. I know this is a different thing, but there's a lot of very cranky chefs and musicians and everything, but people still enjoy what they produce. It doesn't mean that you love how that person behaves or everything they do in their life or what they believe, or and then, obviously in the more intellectual side of it, there are people that may come up with amazing things, but maybe they're terrible people.
Absolutely. The way in which Picasso painted, he was a horrible human being. I mean, the way in which he treated those around him, particularly the women around him, was abhorrent. But and that's becoming a really hot topic on how to handle this, particularly in this age, how to handle that. And yeah, that's something that people, because I think at some point where if you if you're going to do that, you're going to have to go really far back. And if you go really far back, there's a lot of things that you're going to have to cut out from those benefits. And, so I just wanted everyone to know that I'm going to, and I've done in the past, I've said exactly what I've said about someone when they've benefited us. And I want you to know that, sometimes it's not always an endorsement, and I can be in awe of someone and still think that their personal beliefs are garbage. So I just, but, were you able to catch the Wetiko thing that I was getting, and the memetics and, memes and things like that?
I wasn't able to watch the whole thing, but I got a snapshot of it.
Yeah, and the thing I was really thinking about this memetics thing and the spirit of Wetiko, um, if anybody doesn't know, and you can check out my video this week, it I don't know where it came from. It's kind of like a dream, but it's this belief of the Wetiko virus, and it's sort of it's vampirism of the soul. It's it's a virus, it's a sickness, it's a soul sickness, and it can happen with the individual and it can happen with the society. And what it does is it latches on and it consumes more. And for whatever it has consumed, it gets bigger to that point. So if it consumes a human soul or a human being, one second, I've got a cat here. Yeah, come on, buddy. All right, bye. Go on.
The cat is getting on the broadcast, exactly as cats love to do.
Oh my gosh! Well, I had to pull out this microphone because the other one I thought it stopped working, so I had to rip out this microphone, and now I've got plastic everywhere, and that is absolutely like it's heroin for a cat. I have a box, and I have plastic in that box, so naturally, all the cats are like, "What?" So yeah. Anyway,
I can picture it. Oh my gosh. I agree. I think that there's a lot of the selfishness virus going around these days. And I think that's why there's so much unhappiness. And that's not picking on one side or another. That's just saying that a lot of people have gotten to a point where they only want to hear their own side. And that's why it's very difficult for different groups to get along or to even find common ground anymore.
right, exactly. And so eventually at a societal level, it's, kind of what we have, where this endless clampdown on this just insane greed of anything. And I don't mean just greed of money, just greed of everything. And eventually you lose your mind. And yes, and depending on if it, like Jeremy says here, depending on what tribe you're talking about, I hope I pronounce it right. It's the Wendigo, and it sounds interesting. Again, I brought up the point of how that even sounds like the windings that we have from Windows, and to me that sounds a lot like window language for Microsoft products. They call them windings whenever they have the, I think it's those things that float by or whatever. But it all sounds, it's all kind of going back to this whole consumerism thing. That's very interesting to me. But anyway, the point I was making about it is that it gets so big that it's like it has to keep consuming in order to satisfy its hunger. And eventually the individual can't satisfy its hunger. So the individual is driven mad trying to satisfy this parasite's hunger. And I was thinking, as a society, we've driven ourselves with this thing to this point of insanity. And could you imagine if everything we see around us was a reflection of this virus, this soul sickness, this whole drive for this consumerism and the greed and the need for I don't know, fame and just everything that's the vanity of everything. And wouldn't it be very interesting that everything that's around us was set up by this particular need to move this virus forward and to satisfy its cravings? And how that goes to memes is that if an individual human being has been completely drained, right, why a computer system could have been set up by this soul virus would be to create a synthetic living thing like a meme, and it catches like a virus, and it can extract emotion, you know what I mean? And then so then it can feed off of that as well. So you've created this synthetic virus that moves through, and it still is extracting emotion and gathering emotion as it goes through, right? And this soul virus, this vampirism, is using the meme, it uses the meme to draw its energy off of that, right? And as it's drawing that energy, it makes people crave those memes more, and it makes the creators of the memes wanting to create more and more and more memes. So that would be very interesting if the entirety of the computer world was set up, right? Could you imagine if all of it was set up in order to accommodate memes and the viral the fake viral energy from which memes are created? Wouldn't that be a wild thing?
I mean, it would be pretty wild, but it's not beyond the scope of what's possible. In that, you know, there's so many things we've talked about before that when you get to high science, it's often indistinguishable from magic. Well, this is kind of the same thing. You have a population here that, you know, are told, oh, it's not real and that doesn't happen. And then you have this kind of upper echelon that use, you know, for their company logos, their massive companies, they use all these sigils, they use all this stuff while telling the average person, oh, that's not real, that's fairy tales, that's Disney, that doesn't, you know, that's nothing. And then people start doing these memes. You have everybody plugged into these computers, you know, well, a large section of the population. They don't even know what they're doing. They're making these things, and it's having almost that kind of same effect of it's like sucking in all this energy and it's just spreading insanely. And it is obviously able to have massive effects socially and otherwise because it's so simple. It's so such a little synopsis of whatever it is that you're trying to put across. It's not like, oh, you have to read a big page of an essay to see what I think or what I believe in or whatever. It's just this little snapshot that people can just view for a couple of seconds and then share it because they think it's funny. And then their friends share it, and their friends share it. And it just goes like wildfire, but almost in a, you know, in that strange place between the digital computer world, you know, and also kind of the spiritual world. It's somewhere blurry in between those two places because you're dealing with so many different minds and so many different souls that are kind of putting this little energetic, this little frequency message around to each other, and it can actually sway the entire, we've seen it have massive social changes and power beyond what I'm thinking right now of like the meme wars and stuff of the 2016 elections. The mainstream media couldn't get it under control. They were like, listen to us. And people weren't. They were just on their computers memeing and having meme wars. And it was like swaying elections. And it was crazy. And that's when I realized like, this is some kind of crazed thing that was either set forth on purpose because they knew how destructive it would be for people that have no idea what this stuff is or that it's even real to all be messing with it, or it's something that just kind of cropped up on its own and then became completely out of control. And I wonder if there are side effects or backlashes to so many people getting involved with so many different things. I did look at Truthstream Media they made a mini documentary about meme, like the kind of stuff we're talking about here, about how the memes kind of, it's almost like they had their own part to play in recent history. And it's definitely a real thing, even though it's, we might want to think that it's not, but the effect it has is kind of undeniable. I'm not sure exactly, I wanted to say just about the kind of selfishness virus. I heard something similar, not quite the same, but this idea about how with high technologies, if you can lock onto somebody's frequency, you can manipulate how they think or how they act and things like that. And about how, because the Mandela affected people are shifting all the time, that we aren't subject to that. And I do see a lot of the Mandela affected people are not falling into the usual trenches of what causes people to start getting consumed in arguments with each other. Like there's a lot of us who are kind of immune to that. And it might be because we're shifting so much that we're not able to fall under any kind of crazy mind control, vibrational technology that we don't even know exists, if such things are out there. But I did think that was interesting. I heard Dale Dufay talking about that.
Yeah, and it is interesting that the 2016 elections, if you just step back away from it now long enough, regardless of what side you fall on it, there's memes, and it was real, and it had a real effect. And I think that was the most shocking thing about it, was that people were realizing, who didn't want to understand or really accept it, that these memes indeed almost literally took on a life of their own. And indeed they do take on a life of their own. And eventually, you even had that person who was trying to stop, like, the frog thing. He's tried to shut it down, and it's like, no, you've released this thing. And there was actually an episode of THC, the Higher Side Chats, talking about, you can Google the Higher Side Chats and Memetic Magic. And it was talking about it at the time that it was actually going on. And it was talking about how on places like 4chan, they were actually doing rituals, and they would call them dubs and triple dubs and all these different rituals in order to invoke this ancient god and arise this god of chaos. And they were able to do that in order to set forth this god into this world and to create chaos in the election. And they said they knew that they had invoked the god correctly once there were like all sevens, and it was called like a quadruple dub or something like that. It's been more than a year that I heard the episode, and it didn't really tie with me that well at the time. I didn't understand. I just thought it was an interesting subject. But now that I'm in the Mandela effect, I'm seeing how things, just like you said, they roll off my back, and I can kind of look at things objectively a bit easier and understand what's going on about the world, the reality, and understanding how movable and malleable it is. The biggest thing about these memes that I'm learning is that they are that symptom of this synthetic and new level of kind of farmed out, fake fear or distrust or laughter or love or hatred. And it sort of sways and creates a crowd. And it's a new kind of viral propaganda And I brought that up before, and it's becoming a life of its own. And there are entire worlds that are being discovered, or actually it's kind of like an expedition inside your computer and what it's able to do now. And with these memes, it's this new life form now from which the Wetiko could feed off of potentially, because human beings just aren't enough anymore, no matter how much misery you create on the planet. So that's where you get human beings doing the work from the Wetiko into this reality to create this meme, to harvest further this fake viral organism. It's not human, this thing, and yet it's still able to an unsuspecting human harvest something out of them. Expecting they're sitting in a room alone. There's not a lot of things out there to, if you're not, it's not like you're in a long line somewhere in the grocery store and someone's rude to you. You're at home, let's say, on your computer, and this meme pops up on your screen, and from a trusted source usually. And suddenly that emotion is released and the meme is captured in it. And then the meme moves on, and that's it. And then you pass it on. So it's like, wow, that's incredibly amazing. And it plays into that Wetiko. And then I started thinking, man, imagine if all propaganda or all systems around us were designed for just that, and that's how when you're Mandela affected, you're starting to be able to sort of see these systems. Like there's layers of these different veils, and maybe one veil has fallen now, and we can see that for what it actually is. But I was thinking with the Mandela effect, the Mandela effect, it's like not only are we seeing actual changes in history, not only that, we're actually able to see the mechanics and the machinery of the present and how they work, and how the present works to draw energy out of you in the present, even if you are in the present, how it works to draw that energy. And it's very interesting. And what if part of the Mandela effect, is the inadvertent fever breaking, is the way I put it, that it's, each time you see an ME or you see a shift, it's sort of you having a lucid moment in a deep fever. And instead of you being a Mandela shift being something negative, a Mandela shift actually lets you see the reality that you were blind to. What if Tartaria was always there and we couldn't see it? Or again, what if the Mandela effect always was there and we just couldn't see these things because of whatever? I don't know.
Yeah, because of the kind of madness of the fever dream. That's kind of something that's kind of a harsh reality, I suppose, when you do wake up to the effect, like when you have your eureka moment or your Ed McMahon moment or whatever it is, your first undeniable Mandela effect. At least this is how it was for me. That's when you start to wonder about what your life actually was before. And it's very possible that you were in such a deep sleep or in such a deep madness that there could have been very obvious Mandela effects going on the whole time and you couldn't see it. And that makes, I don't know, that makes me feel very weird, of course, because we have to trust our perception as much as we can, or for as much levels of perception that we have available to us, because that's our only way of kind of figuring out what is going on around us. And when you think that you were somehow detached from your own perception, and it's almost like you're reattaching when you have that fever break, when you see the Mandela effect, when you have those lucid moments of being able to see reality kind of more for what it is and not be sucked into some strange dream that isn't even real. Everyone around you is kind of telling you, oh, it's all solid, it's always been this way, nothing changes, it's all very linear, it's all very, it has this great permanence. It's such a, kind of sturdy reality to rely on. And when that's kind of all smashed apart, it really makes me wonder. It's kind of like I was just saying there, it's almost like you have, your mind was shattered before, and it's like the pieces are all kind of coming back together. Like if a cracked mirror could heal itself, it's kind of all coming back together. And the more that we shift and the more that we understand about the effect, I think it's the more that we are actually coming into lucidity, and that we are breaking away from whatever this madness is that apparently we're all born into. And it's, yeah, that's not a very nice way of seeing things. To me, that feels kind of borderline nightmarish. But I'm definitely glad to be, waking up regardless of how uncomfortable the truth might be. And we really don't know how crazy it's going to be. We are only still in the early years of this.
Right, exactly. And it could be something that's uncomfortable, but I think sometimes it's just something that I'm exploring, and I'm just, it seems pretty clear to me, and I've always said I wanted to branch off into other things, but I think that I, I think the Mandela effect is so much a part of our environment that no matter what we think of as conspiracy or paranormal or fringe, I think it fits like this. It can fit within the framework of what is the Mandela effect, because the Mandela effect is as real as the sun or the fake sun or whatever. It's as real as the white sun out there that we all hate, but it's as real as that. And I think that's the power of this, is that I think it's helping us break it's giving us maybe moments of lucidity. Now, I don't know, because I'm still trying to form this idea, and I'm hoping to present this to everyone, and maybe everyone will start to think on this. But, what if, you know, what if we could build other ideas based off this anyway? And even if the Mandela effect maybe, or Wetiko, if it's conscious, it will know that we're getting closer. And because there are so many of us now, and even people not listening, just MEs in general globally, right? And it's becoming such a big thing that it's at the point. Look at it this way. This last week, we've got so much proof with Ed McMahon. I had someone tweet to me that they have history, right? And and oh god, no, no. I hate that, Google doesn't really do its or doesn't do its job. Um yeah. I know, there we go. So, sorry guys. Yeah. All right, good. Anyway, I just, hold on guys. I'm doing some work here. Just doing some cleanup work. What was I saying? I
Um, we,
forgot.
we were talking about how it is a break from kind of the fever dream of what we thought was reality. We're kind
Yeah.
of waking up to more of what is actually going on.
Yes. Yes. If you want to take that for 1 second, I will. I need to change something. I'm sorry. I
For
got to do
sure.
something technical.
No problems. Yeah, and I think that one of the stranger things is the possibility that perhaps we kind of exist everywhere in a way, and that we are kind of reattaching. The more we reattach, kind of the more different the reality that we're actually faced with is. I suppose, in my own mind, I kind of break it up like this: is I think that kind of on the subconscious level and perhaps the soul level, we are all over this situation, both around and up and down. And I'll explain that as around being on all the different Earths in the Milky Way, however many there are, and up and down being the different levels of dimensions. And I think that we exist in all of those places. And I think that the more you kind of wake up, the more you have that, when Neo takes the plunge and goes into reality and decides to step away from what he thought was the world, that kind of scenario there, I think the more that things come back together for you, the more that your perception is able to heal, and the more that you're able to basically live out your life in a portion of yourself that's in perhaps hopefully a better place, but certainly in different places than where you started out. I'm beginning to think that kind of the progression you make in your thought processes to do with this, the more you kind of wake up and remember how things really are, the further along you'll get in this process. Now, I don't know if anyone's actually ever reached the finish line, but I would love to find out. If
Well,
somebody found that big thing of, oh my gosh, this is what it all really means, and the Mandela effect was the breadcrumb trail.
Well, look at it this way. I mean, just this week, guys, we hit a turning point. I hope you guys understand with this Ed McMahon video and all the other Ed McMahon videos we have, because somebody just noted that they felt like they were drifted. See, I think it's Buster 1978. Understand, everyone, we had a triumph this week with this Ed McMahon thing. And I know it's pop culture, so it sounds ridiculous on the surface, but hear me out here. We've got Ed McMahon contradicting the well-accepted narrative. We've got the links in there. It's in the description of this video. Okay? We have more proof than they have. We now don't have to explain ourselves. We download these videos for yourselves to make sure they don't go away. We're on the offensive now with this Ed McMahon thing. And just the fact that we concentrated on this Ed McMahon thing, we are now on the offense. They have to prove to us that PCH isn't real, because that's what this one commercial. Well, I'll give you 5 different testimonies. I'll give you the presidential papers. I'll give you Johnny Carson, David Letterman, all of their staff, that stupid check with Publishers Clearinghouse handing to Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon himself saying that he ran up with the checks. And I've noticed Wiki has already changed a couple of times. It went from he did hand out the checks, and then it went to he handed out the checks one time as a promotional thing. Then it went to he didn't hand out the checks. It keeps changing, and I've got to record that, or maybe it's something at the quantum level. But the evidence, yes, definitely, Buster 78. The evidence is now in our favor, and that's all we need is one example. If we can prove one example of the Mandela effect to be real, the Mandela effect is real. And Ed McMahon and PCH I'm telling you, man, it is the thing. It is it. And everything else can fall into place after that. And I'm telling you, and I think it's all having to do with all of us understanding all of these other really abstract, esoteric things like the Wetiko, and understanding consumption, and all of it is somehow tied. But this viral thing, that got out there, that's what they don't want to happen with the Mandela effect. Have you guys noticed, the timing? I'm going to say it's going to sound a bit weird and selfish, but just like I think it was Carol that was saying, it's a reflection of ourselves, the reality. YouTube just shut down basically all of us for being Mandela affected. They demonetized my entire channel. That's fine. But all of us, they're not going to put us in the, they're going to hide us essentially now, all of us. They're not going to put us in recommended anymore. Now, they said flat earth mostly, but I'm sure Mandela effect by my numbers as they keep free falling. That's fine. But what I'm trying to say is that they know now this thing could get viral like a virus, like that frog thing did. Go listen to THC from like 2 years ago. This Ed McMahon thing has the danger, the absolute power and the danger of contradicting the most worst skeptics, saying you don't remember correctly. The person from which we're talking about this, then you're saying doesn't remember correctly. I mean, Ed McMahon is saying he delivered the checks. Carson and Letterman, they had the check that says, and you can pause it just right, it says Publishers Clearinghouse. And again, the number of staff that had to be coordinated between the networks and between their staff. Do you understand how many people had to look at that stupid check? And then for Publishers Clearinghouse or American Family Publishers, they are financial entities for which is basically a free commercial what they did, or it was worked in as a commercial as part of the whatever, legal papers. You can't just put Publishers Clearinghouse up on national television without papers being signed. You can't tell me that was put up there and papers weren't signed in a contract, and money didn't change hands. Even whenever it's a minor prop like that, especially if you're mentioning a company. We're on the offense, people. We are on the offense now. So, oh, you don't remember. Show them over and over again, the presidential papers, over and over again, and we're going to find more and more. And then, everybody, please, if you can get a testimony, get it out there. Don't hurt anyone, don't upset anyone, but please get some testimonies if you can find someone, and then get the word out of other MEs if they could do that. And it's not even from, just give me the channel and I'll show the channel. I'm not looking for the clicks. You don't have to send the video to me. If you want, send it to me, fine. I'll put it up there. But if you want to put it up on your channel, I will redirect traffic to your channel the best that I can do. so we can get this out there. Because for me, it's not about the clicks. I mean, we're talking about the nature of reality. Ooh, a bunch of people are talking to me. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that the more that we can find these kind of staple Mandela effects, the better. I know a couple of people, the reader and everything in the chat was saying that, in Europe, they don't know Ed McMahon, but I'm sure we can find something, that's kind of parallel to that, because it's important to wake up people in as many places as we can. And I'm sure that that will emerge too, whatever the parallel is. And I'll try and pursue that one. But for the moment, for here, Ed McMahon is a very obvious and very staple Mandela effect, because I think that, Chick-fil-A versus Chick-fil-A and things like that, I think you could argue all day about whether or not that was, is there a K on the end of Chick-fil-A, or did it just end with a C, or is chartreuse a green color or a wine red? I mean, I think you could argue about that forever, but I think that when you find certain Emmys that almost everybody remembers it being a certain way, and I know there are different groups of us, but large groups remember it being a certain way, it's the best way to kind of introduce people to this. Like you were saying, not conspiracy theory people. A lot of, what we're really looking for is people that are not involved with that scene whatsoever, not to draw them into every kind of thing, but just to draw them into reality and give them that fever break moment so they can start to, follow their own breadcrumb trail about the world and about what it is.
That's awesome. Yeah, exactly. And you're right. In other parts of the world, like Europe or parts of Asia or Australia or just wherever it may be, if you're listening or yeah, I'm convinced there's something there like that. And I think the powerful part of it is if you could follow the Ed McMahon model, where it's a human being that has the potential to contradict them, and say, I'm so sad he's gone. But the potential to say, look, I remember it this way. It would be so powerful. And even with the Sinbad thing, him saying he doesn't remember, I mean, we are dealing with the potentiality of different timelines. And I put in the community tab a mainstream scientist on the Joe Rogan show talking about the multi-dimensional theory, the multiverse theory. Like, we scientists, if people are still looking for that scientism stamp of approval, it's there. Yeah, straight up. There's, the multi-dimensional theory, the multi-universal theory. Yeah. And it's like, yep, for sure. It's there. It's all there. And yeah, I think we are on the offensive. Someone mentioned that we are the antivirus. I think we are the antivirus, and we are about to go antiviral. And I just feel like we're on the cusp of something big.
I think so, and it's just kind of almost the exact same thing. If the antivirus spreads and spreads and spreads throughout the entire system as much as we can, then the virus is, it's repressed or hopefully kind of defeated in all this. And by defeated, I mean that people just have a wake up moment. Now, whether or not they choose to pursue it, that's completely their own free will. But just that they have the option to just be awake enough for a moment to consider that it is a real possibility and that there is so much more to reality than what was put in front of us. Now, Agent Smith just said something interesting in the chat, and I was thinking about that earlier too, how it was probably a very deliberate backlash against us when they made the viral thing about the Yanni Laurel, and you kind of hear you hear what you like, you see what you like, to kind of, because they're kind of what you always hear from people who doubt this is, oh, you're not remembering, or the human memory is so bad. And I think that was kind of trying to point out that, oh, human perception is just so bad that you don't know what you're looking at. And I think when that message is put across, we need to double down and say, actually, no, at least where we're from, human perception was very good. For many, many years, people had to learn everything by heart before, especially before it became the fashion to write everything down. There were a lot of people who had to learn reams and reams and reams of history, family histories, poetry. They had to learn these things by heart, the bards and druids and all these different people. And then, of course, as we go closer and closer to the present, there's less and less the tradition of learning everything off by heart. But the human mind is incredible, and people that grow up learning things off by heart from books have an entirely different thinking process than people who just, search Google, search Google, search Google. When you do everything with the computer, it oversimplifies your thought processes for gathering, sorting, and collecting information. And what they're hoping is that has taken such ill effect on the general population that the general population now are so demoralized that they will believe you when you say to them, "Oh, you're just so stupid, you don't know what you saw." Because any authority that has the power to make you doubt your own perception can convince you of anything. They don't even need to have any kind of, propaganda that's well written or anything. They just say, "Oh, you don't remember what you saw. You have no idea what you perceived." And if you believe that and you go along with that, you've lost your autonomy entirely.
Well, I think an important point like you're making is it has been shown now. All you have to do is say something with authority, and there's a fair amount of the population that they're going to believe you. And if you're really loud, and I'm not going to talk about dwell on the channels again, but if you're really loud and if you're really obnoxious and you're just banging your fist as hard as you can, you are going, regardless of how repetitive it is, how unoriginal it is, you will get a population. And certain people know exactly what I'm talking about. You will get a certain amount of people to follow you. And the danger in that they're seeing is that if you've got that and you've got like real facts behind you, you're going to become unstoppable. And that's why I think a lot of people are starting to get shut down, because if there is just a sliver of truth, like I said, it's kind of interesting. We're gaining ground on this Ed McMahon thing because we're concentrating on one thing. Of course, we're talking about everything else and we're not excluding anything. But if we take a third of our time for one thing to concentrate on just the one thing. And we were lucky, it looks like, because there's more and more residue growing with this. And like Agent Smith is saying, there's a lot of, in this reality, the Yanni Laurel thing is a thing where just like Chick was saying, where I come from, that wasn't even possible. Here, if anything, that should prove more to people. The Mandela effect absolutely is real, because our reality, even at the quantum level, look, the double slit experiment shows what? That there's a lack of resources. That's really what the double split experiment shows. And that's what the Laurel Yanni thing shows. It shows the resources that it takes to keep the veil up, to keep reality running, and to keep this lie that we call existence running. In order for it to run and for it to make it believable, it has to allocate its resources only whenever it's being concentrated on, apparently by a human being. I don't know if it changes for animals because we can't speak to them yet. We may one day. But for human beings, when they look at something, reality reorganizes itself to what the expectations of that human being is. It's like sort of like what Carol was talking about. We are looking back at our own reflections. And the problem is the Mandela effect is showing a crack in that. And that the reflection that we're looking at, like you're saying with the mirror, it has that crack. The Yanni Laurel thing is the first to where it's showing the resources that it's taking to keep this reality running smoothly, like a computer system is overheating. The machine is overheating and it's breaking down. Or you can look at it in terms of the Wetiko. That we are having those lucid moments, and we're about to break the fever. And I think it is interesting, our timing with Ed McMahon, and then they're cracking down on us. And I think more and more we're going to have more and more momentum and steam going forward with everything we do, even now beyond Ed. I think we've broken this thing with Ed. I think too, and I think the crackdown, overall, and the crackdown with this channel in particular, is because of this incredible team that we've assembled here with all of us, and this incredible crew that comes back week after week here and listens. And we're a small channel, but you know what? And we're a small group, and we have 68 people right now. But imagine, we're so small, and yet Punitive action had to happen to such a small gathering. Now, what does that tell you? What does that? It says something to me, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I think we did something here. And I got to tell you, people like stop talking about the numbers. It sounds shallow. My thing broke out for a week, and I think I broke the matrix for like a week or something, and then they caught up somehow with me or something. And then I wish not only did my numbers drop, so they shut me down, they demonetized me to punish me. It was almost as if I got free for a minute and my work was out there and it was able to roam freely. And then in a it became its own meme in a viral sense. And then suddenly, boom, I was shut down, like totally shut down. I even have negative views. How do you get negative views now? They're like actually taking views away from me. It's weird. It's bizarre. Like math doesn't even matter anymore.
True. I mean, that's certainly I've seen that, not to such an extent because my channel doesn't hasn't had a breakout for like a long time, but I've seen when my view count was higher and then went lower again, as if people had unwatched it. And I
Yeah.
was wondering if we have like cross timelines and they hadn't watched it, or if YouTube algorithm it's not enough to just hide it or demonetize it or make it harder to find or all these different things, but that they can actually not just cap the views but remove the views that you've already gotten to try and keep your movement contained. I mean, that's weird. I do think about that sometimes. Like, what if there's way more people watching and interacting, but you're never allowed to see that? I've had comments that I'm not allowed to read and not allowed to see. My comments are not filtered or anything. You know what I mean? There's nothing to stop the comments showing up, is what I'm trying to say. But it'll still try and it'll take certain ones aside and put them into the review at first place, even though I ask it not to do that. But there's times where it just won't let me into the review at first place. Like I'm not allowed to see those comments whatsoever. So it's almost like you're not allowed to see certain views, you're not allowed to see certain comments. There's something going on.
I get that too. That's weird that you said that. There'll be times that it'll say 5 comments on my smartphone, and then I'll go to my laptop to see the comments, and it'll say 5 comments, and there's no comments there. Then I'll go to my spam bin. I'll go to my held for review. I'll go everywhere, and the comments are simply not there. And it's like, man, you guys, in case you're listening, you got a bug. You're holding back comments, and we can, Chick and I, we've experienced this where the comment number says 5, but we can't see the comments. That, or you have some weird random bug that decided to put 5 or 4 or 10 comments that we can't see. So just, throwing that out there for your R&D team. If you're listening, we're just trying to hook you up.
For sure. I know some of mine were real because I could click the little the little notification thing, and I could see the start of the comments from different people. But when I'd click it, I couldn't get it. I'd click it, it would bring me to the video, and then the comment wouldn't be there.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That happens all the time. I need to start getting screenshots of that. I totally have to start getting screenshots of that, man. Oh, that's a great idea. Because I've started taking screenshots on my phone in the last couple weeks with different reasons, but I've got to do that for a print screen with my laptop, because you're right, it'll drop down and it's like, yeah, okay, got it, and then you go over there and it's not there, the full comment. I ought to do that. I got to do that. Great idea, Chick.
Carol was just saying, Carol California was saying, could you imagine what would happen if we all broke through at once, even for a moment? I think if we all had a real moment of lucidity within this reality of whatever's going on, I think that we would never be as blinded to what's going on ever again. I think we would probably, still be stuck in the system to whatever degree, but I think that our eyes would open up a bit, and that would be an amazing thing. So hopefully that does happen.
Yeah. And Dick Diamonds is saying he can't get a reply. And people, I've got to tell you guys, if I don't reply to you, or especially now that my comments have dropped down so much, I'm trying to reply, or at least give a like or a heart to every person. If I don't reply to you, I'm not ignoring you. I didn't see it. So I try to get to everybody, especially if you're on my community tab. I try to get to every single person. So, hit me up on Twitter if you've got a Twitter account. and or I just it's just tough over here getting to people. And I don't know if the troll brigade is tired of me or what. They left, so I used to literally get hundreds of just awful comments, and it stopped all at one time. It was the weirdest thing, guys. And now I actually have been trying to respond to everybody and catch up to, because to all of the comments, because I can do it now. So I'm trying to get to everybody. And if I don't get to you in more recent videos, it's because I don't see it. So I don't know what to say. Hit me up in the comment tab. Maybe that one seems to be a little more responsible than my regular comments. Hey guys, we're 10 minutes over. Any parting shots, Chick?
Yeah, the reader was just saying there that she sees patches of emptiness, like to such a glitching degree that it's like interfering with her perception. And I was just answering her that Europe is shifting so wildly that I'm not surprised. Sweden is almost touching Germany and Poland. Like things have just completely gone crazy there. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is serious glitching and serious timeline paranormal activity. It kind of reminds me of what we talked about on earlier episodes about the possibility of ghosts, quote unquote, just being people who are still alive in other timelines, kind of almost transacting with each other, but not quite. And I feel like that's kind of going on with the geo shifting right now. I feel like there's all kinds of things momentarily almost coming in and out of perceivable reality, and it's very, very strange. But yeah, for parting shots, I'd like to say thank you so much, everybody that joined us here on the Lost and Found bin. I think this was a great episode. I think that the more we focus on certain Mandela effects, the more evidence kind of appears. I think by focusing so much on Ed McMahon, that it was instrumental in this massive amount of evidence appearing for us, to the point where the ultimate thing of the person we're talking about agrees with us. So if we could get that with more Mandela effects, like have the actual person that we're talking about say that they remember things the way we do, then we've blown the lid off this entire thing to a point where the doubters can't argue with us, because that wouldn't make sense.
Absolutely. It's exactly what Chick said. It's getting to the point to where the onus isn't on us anymore. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter. We are so powerful now. It doesn't even matter about their numbers. That they may have the numbers, but we've got the real truth of this reality. So you guys, thank you. We had a wonderful episode. I'm going to download these two links that I left in the description. And if you just come across someone and you've got your phone handy, just record the interview and upload it to your channel, or get it over to myself or Chick, or just someone in the inner circle, Agent Smith, it doesn't matter, just someone to upload it, and then to let us know what's going on. And we will, Buster 78, anybody, a Dark Slayer, who can just please just get it up there. So all right, that's it. And we are out, and we'll see you guys next week.
Talk to you guys soon.